It's almost a cliche because it's just so true, isn't it?
Mm.
Surveys consistently show that for a lot of people, the idea of public speaking causes more anxiety than, well, even the fear of death.
It's really staggering when you think about it like that.
Yeah. So, okay, let's unpack this because a fear this big, this common, really deserves a proper deep dive.
Absolutely. We're going to explore public speaking anxiety, or PSA as it's often called. And we've gathered some really interesting sources to help us not just understand it, but maybe more importantly, pull out some practical ways you can actually manage it.
Exactly. We've got a review of studies looking at how university students cope, another study digging into the experiences of Swedish high schoolers, which is fascinating,
Hmm.
and then some really practical techniques from university counseling centers, teaching resources, that sort of thing. Plus, we'll touch on how cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, tackles this.
So, our mission really is to sift through all this and find the strategies, the insights that you can actually put to use.
Okay, let's start with just defining it. What exactly is public speaking anxiety?
Well, as we said, it's a type of communication anxiety. Stage fright is the common term, but for some people, it can be really severe, almost bordering on a social phobia.
And the physical side of it.
Wow. Oh, definitely. Your body absolutely reacts.
Yeah, you get that horrible feeling in your stomach, maybe even nausea,
Hmm.
the tremors, right? The shaky hands,
Sweaty palms, heart racing, blushing. It's a whole cascade.
and that shaky voice, or feeling like you just can't catch your breath.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Not fun. Not at all. And it's more than just uncomfortable in the moment. Our sources show it can really impact things like education, maybe how well you do academically.
Right.
It can even hold you back in your career. Some studies link it to lower income, believe it or not, and it definitely chips away at your self-confidence, affects social stuff too.
And it's interesting, this anxiety isn't just about the moment of speaking, is it?
No, that's a key point. It can be state-based, so it gets much worse while you're speaking. But it can also be trait-like. That's more of a persistent worry, even when you're just preparing or thinking about it.
And they can happen together, like a double whammy.
Oh, absolutely. You can definitely experience both at the same time. It makes it particularly challenging.
So what are people actually afraid of? That a Swedish study you mentioned looked into this, right?
It did. And the students there really pinpointed some core fears. Things like being judged negatively by others,
Yeah. Yeah.
making mistakes in front of everyone, getting bad feedback from teachers, from their classmates, and just that awful feeling of not being prepared enough.
Okay, so we've got a handle on what it is, what it feels like, some of the fears behind it. Let's dig into that review now, the one about how university students try to cope.
Right. This was a systematic review looking at 9 different studies published between 2015 and 2020. It focused specifically on the self-coping strategies students use.
Self-coping, okay? So things they do themselves.
Exactly. And to make sense of all the different strategies, the researchers used a kind of classification system, the language learning strategies, or LLS framework.
Hmm.
It helps group similar approaches together.
Okay, so it gives us some categories to work with. What were they?
Well, they identified 6 main types. First were memory strategies.
Like just memorizing the whole speech?
Sort of. It includes things like reviewing note cards, rereading scripts, sometimes memorizing parts or all of it. Also, just making sure they really understood the topic deeply, or even imitating how native speakers sound.
Okay, what else?
Then you have cognitive strategies. This is more about actively processing the information. So rehearsing is a big one, maybe in front of a mirror, or just silently running through it.
Practicing, basically.
Practicing, reasoning things out, analyzing the topic, structuring the speech logically, that kind of mental work.
Makes sense. What's next?
Compensation strategies. This was interesting. It's like finding ways around the difficulty.
How so?
Things like deliberately choosing a topic they already knew really well, using gestures or mime to help get the point across,
Ah,
using synonyms if they couldn't think of the right word, simplifying their vocabulary, sometimes even translating directly from their native language or code switching.
code switching, like mixing languages.
Yeah, slipping in a word or phrase from their first language if they got stuck in English. The review noted this, along with heavy gesturing, was actually linked to higher anxiety sometimes.
Maybe like a crutch that signals they're struggling.
Potentially. Oh, and another compensation strategy they found was focusing on their presentation outfit.
Really? Like look good, feel good.
Maybe something like that, trying to boost confidence externally.
Okay, interesting. What about metacognitive strategies? That sounds a bit more complex.
It's about thinking about your learning and speaking process. So, planning and organizing,
Right.
like drafting detailed scripts, really mapping out the speech structure, watching videos of similar talks, consciously focusing on pronunciation during practice.
So, very deliberate preparation.
Very deliberate. Preparing props or slides way in advance, coordinating carefully with group members if it was a team thing, even recording themselves rehearsing to see how they did.
That's quite thorough. Okay, what about the emotional side? Effective strategies.
Yes, these directly target the feelings, the anxiety itself. Things like listening to calming music beforehand,
Deep breathing.
deep breathing, definitely. Meditation, they mentioned dhikr specifically, which is a form of mindful remembrance in Islam.
Mm,
Also, just walking around to burn off nervous energy.
positive self-talk, too.
Yes, using positive affirmations, talking about their feelings with friends or peers. Some students found writing reflections helpful, even playing games to distract themselves.
Distraction, okay.
But unfortunately, avoidance, just trying not to speak at all, also fell into this category for some.
Yeah, that's a strategy, I guess, but not a very productive one long-term.
What was the last category?
Social strategies. Basically leveraging other people for support.
Like asking friends for feedback. Exactly. Asking peers for feedback on their practice runs, getting help from friends during the actual presentation if they got stuck, maybe asking a question or for clarification.
Oh,
And
interesting.
also things like joining English clubs or programs specifically to get more practice speaking in a supportive setting.
Wow, that's a really wide range of tactics people use. Did the review find any links between, say, the student's skill level or anxiety level and the strategies they pick?
It did find some patterns, yeah. For instance, students who had like an intermediate level of English proficiency but high anxiety, they tended to rely more on those compensation and metacognitive strategies.
Workarounds and the heavy planning.
Exactly. Whereas students who are actually quite good at English but still had high anxiety, they leaned more towards the effective strategies trying to manage the feelings directly.
Okay.
And for students with high anxiety who were in programs taught entirely in English, they were more likely to use social strategies seeking help and memory strategies, like lots of rehearsal or using simpler words.
So your situation influences your go-to methods. Makes sense. What about effectiveness? Did the review say if these things actually worked?
Well, it looked at perceived effectiveness mostly. Preparation and positive thinking seemed linked to students feeling more willing to communicate in the first place.
That seems logical.
And things like solid prep, repetition, getting help, really thinking through their points, rehearsing, organizing those were associated with getting better scores on speaking tests.
Okay, so the effort paid off.
Generally, yes. But findings on things like getting peer feedback or using relaxation techniques were a bit more mixed.
Oh, what's that?
The researchers suggested personality might play a bigger role there. What relaxes one person might not work for another.
Sure.
One thing that did seem consistently helpful, though, was self-reflection. Students who took time to think about their own speaking, identify strengths and weaknesses, tended to report feeling more confident afterward.
That's really valuable. Okay, let's switch over to those Swedish high school students again. What did we learn from talking to them directly?
Right. This was a smaller, qualitative study interviews with 10 students. They talked about how they felt speaking English in class and what they thought would help with anxiety.
And did they all feel the same way?
No, definitely not. There was quite a range. Some felt pretty comfortable in certain situations, like small group chats.
Yeah.
But giving individual presentations in front of the whole class, that made almost everyone nervous.
That spotlight effect again. What were their main fears, according to them?
Very similar to what we saw in the other research, actually. Fear of being judged, making mistakes, getting negative comments from the teacher or even their friends.
Peer judgment can be tough.
Definitely. And that fear of just not being prepared enough kept coming up.
So what did they think teachers could do? It's always interesting to get that student perspective.
Yeah, they had some really good ideas. A big one was creating a safe classroom atmosphere, somewhere it felt okay to make a mistake without being jumped on. Clear instructions were also key, knowing exactly what was expected. They liked having varied activities, not just standing up and talking alone. More group work, more discussions.
Makes sense? Mixes it up.
And feedback, they preferred positive, constructive feedback given privately, not called out in front of everyone. They also liked the idea of teachers gradually increasing the difficulty of speaking tasks, not just throwing them in the deep end.
Those all sound like really smart, supportive teaching practices. What about self-help? What did the students think they could do?
Their own ideas were quite insightful, too. Better preparation was high on the list.
Naturally.
Actively trying to reduce their negative thoughts that came up again, practicing more often, just getting more exposure, and trying to focus on their own progress instead of constantly comparing themselves to the classmates who seemed more confident.
That's a really healthy mindset shift and
Mhm.
taking ownership. Okay, so building on that, let's talk about some of those concrete techniques from the university counseling and teaching centers. Real practical stuff.
Exactly. These are tools anyone can try. One of the first steps they recommend is really identifying your specific fears. Get them out in the open.
How do you do that?
They suggest something called scheduled worrying. Sounds a bit odd, maybe.
Yeah, a little. Like booking an appointment with your anxiety.
Kind of. You set a timer, say 10, 15 minutes, and just write down every single fear you have about the upcoming speech or presentation. Everything.
Okay. Why?
The idea is that by confronting them directly, you can start to sort through them. Which ones are maybe exaggerated, which ones are legitimate concerns you could actually plan for. It stops them just swirling around in your head.
Huh. I can see how that might actually reduce the power they have. What about tackling the thoughts themselves?
Right, that's where mindful self-talk comes in. It connects back to what those Swedish students mentioned about reducing negative thoughts.
Being mindful. So paying attention.
Paying attention to your thoughts in the present moment, but without judging them or automatically accepting the negative ones as truth. Noticing that inner critic, but not necessarily believing everything it says.
And trying to shift it.
Yes, shifting towards a growth mindset.
Yeah.
That belief that your abilities aren't fixed, that you can improve with effort and practice. It's about changing the narrative in your head.
Okay, challenging that negativity. What about physical techniques for when your heart is pounding right before you go on?
Absolutely crucial. They highlighted several. Abdominal breathing, deep, slow breaths from your belly is number one. There are specific ways to practice it lying down, sitting, standing. It directly helps slow your heart rate, calm the nervous system.
Okay, deep breaths. Got it.
Then there's progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR.
What's that involve?
You systematically tense specific muscle groups like your fists, your shoulders, your legs, hold the tension for a few seconds, and then consciously release it while breathing out. It helps you become aware of where you're holding tension and actively let it go.
That sounds like something you could do quite discreetly beforehand.
Exactly. They also offered a quick pre-speech checklist, just mentally scanning your body. Are your feet grounded, knees soft, buttocks unclenched, abdomen relaxed, shoulders down, jaw loose, neck relaxed. Just releasing tension points.
A quick body scan. Nice. Anything else?
A really practical mental exercise. Best case, worst case, most likely scenario.
Okay. How does that help?
It forces you to think realistically. What's the absolute best outcome? Probably amazing, but maybe unlikely. What's the absolute worst? Often catastrophic in our heads, but also probably unlikely. Then what's the most likely outcome? Usually it's somewhere in the middle, perfectly acceptable, maybe even quite good. It helps manage expectations and reduce catastrophizing.
That seems like a great reality check. And rehearsal. Any specific tips there?
They mentioned a technique called, hey, listen to this, basically encouraging you to actually practice in front of supportive friends or colleagues,
You get real feedback.
getting real constructive feedback. And also recording yourself video or audio. It can feel awkward at first,
definitely.
but it's incredibly valuable for seeing and hearing yourself as others do. It helps you spot things to work on, but also often shows you you're doing better than you thought, which builds confidence.
Confronting the reality. Okay, that makes sense. Finally, let's touch on cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. How does that fit into managing this fear?
Right, CBT offers a very structured approach. There's a program mentioned called Fear and Loathing of Speaking Out in Public, great name, which uses core CBT principles.
Okay, and what are those core principles?
Three main things, really. One is gradual exposure or progressive desensitization, slowly facing the feared situation in manageable steps.
Taking it bit by bit.
Second is identifying and challenging those negative automatic thoughts that fuel the anxiety. We talked about that a bit already.
Right.
And third is actively creating and rehearsing positive, more realistic self-talk to replace the negative patterns.
So it's quite systematic. How does the challenging thoughts part work in practice?
They use tools like a fear buster chart. It's quite concrete. You write down a specific fear related to speaking.
Okay.
Then you identify the negative thoughts that pop up with that fear, like, everyone will think I'm stupid.
Yeah.
Then, and this is the key part, you formulate a positive but realistic counter thought. Not just, I'm brilliant, but maybe I've prepared well and I know the material. Even if I stumble, I can recover.
More balance.
Exactly. Then you rate how much you actually believe that new thought, say on a scale of 1 to 10. And finally, you plan specific experiences or actions you can take to gather evidence for that positive thought and increase your belief in it over time.
Wow, so it's really about actively retraining your brain, building proof for the new belief.
Precisely. It's not just wishful thinking, it's structured cognitive restructuring.
What else is involved in this CBT approach?
Relaxation exercises are usually integrated the breathing, the muscle relaxation we discussed. Visualization is often used too.
Like picturing success.
Yes, but sometimes in specific ways. They mentioned a circle of excellence technique, where you vividly recall a past time you felt confident and capable, anchor that feeling, and then mentally step into that circle before speaking. Or picturing a confident role model kind of coaching you mentally.
Interesting techniques.
And the underlying message in CBT is that really addressing those deep-seated negative beliefs about yourself or about speaking is often necessary for real, lasting change.
It sounds very thorough, integrating a lot of the pieces we talked about.
Exactly. And the sources mention that when these kinds of CBT strategies were built into an actual public speaking course with workshops, practice, and reflection essays after speeches, it showed good results, even just over one semester.
That's really encouraging. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the main things you think people should take away?
Well, I think the biggest message is simply that this anxiety is incredibly normal. You are definitely not alone if you feel this way.
Absolutely, it's super common.
And the second key thing is that it's manageable. It's not something you just have to live with. There's a whole toolbox of strategies out there.
Yeah, from fairly simple self-help things you can try right away to more involved approaches like CBT if the anxiety is really persistent or severe.
And it really seems to come down to figuring out what works for you. That starts with identifying your personal triggers and fears.
Right, that self-awareness piece.
And then experimenting, trying different techniques, the breathing, the thought challenging, the practice methods, and seeing what actually helps you feel more in control and less anxious.
It's probably not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Almost certainly not. For most people, it's likely going to be a combination using some self-help strategies, maybe finding or creating supportive environments where you can practice safely, and potentially exploring something like CBT if needed. It's about finding your personal mix.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. Thinking about everything we've covered, the student experiences, the practical techniques, the therapy approaches, which of these insights really struck a chord with you?
Yeah.
Maybe based on your own experiences or perhaps what you've seen in others.
And building on that, what's maybe one small concrete step you could realistically take? Something to just start shifting your own perspective or approach to public speaking, even a little bit.